Hey everyone, and welcome to AI for the People's daily deep dive into all things AI. We've got a ton of cool stuff to cover today, from quantum leaps in computing to AI that can predict the weather with crazy accuracy. So are you ready to unpack all this?
Let's dive in. It's really amazing to see how AI is moving beyond just theoretical discussions and actually shaping the world around us.
It really is. One of the companies that caught my eye this week is QuantumLeap AI. They're using AI to kind of unlock the power of quantum computing.
Yeah, I've heard of them. What's really interesting is that they're working with a quantum hardware provider to actually test their algorithms on real quantum computers. This is a huge deal because it's bridging the gap between theoretical quantum computing and real-world applications.
So for someone like me who's, trying to follow these developments, what does this actually mean? It's not just about cool tech, right?
Right. Imagine problems that would take classical computers millions of years to solve. Things like simulating complex molecules for drug discovery or optimizing those super intricate financial models. Quantum computing can potentially do all of this in way less time.
That's mind-blowing. And it makes you wonder, what other impossible problems could suddenly become solvable with this tech?
It's really exciting to think about the possibilities. And speaking of predictions, we can't forget about DeepMind's foray into weather forecasting. Their new AI model is making a lot of noise, especially for how accurate it is in predicting those crazy extreme weather events.
Yeah, this sounds like it could be a massive leap forward from our current weather models. What makes DeepMind's approach so different?
Well, traditional models tend to rely on complex equations and tons of historical data, which can be limiting when it comes to predicting sudden changes or those super extreme events. But DeepMind's model uses a machine learning approach, trained on huge data sets of weather patterns, so it can recognize those subtle signs and predict things like hurricanes or flash floods with much more accuracy.
So instead of just looking at past data, it's learning to anticipate future patterns. I can already see how this could be used for better disaster preparedness and more efficient resource management in areas like agriculture and energy.
Absolutely. Imagine farmers knowing exactly when to irrigate crops based on hyper-accurate rainfall predictions, or energy companies optimizing power grids in anticipation of extreme temperatures.
It's incredible to think about how all these seemingly separate advancements in AI, from quantum computing to weather prediction, are all kind of interconnected in a way.
Yeah, they really are. And they all point to a future where AI plays an even bigger role in our everyday lives. But as we create these increasingly complex systems, we also need to start thinking about the ethical implications.
That's a really great point. And speaking of mimicking human capabilities, neuromorphic computing is an area that really blurs the lines between tech and biology.
It definitely does. Neuromorphic computing is all about creating systems that mimic the structure and function of the human brain. Basically moving away from traditional digital circuits and using artificial neurons and synapses. So these systems can learn and adapt much more like the human brain.
So instead of just processing data, they're actually learning from it. I'm curious, how does this brain-inspired approach translate into actual applications?
Well, one of the biggest areas is energy efficiency. The human brain is incredibly efficient, and neuromorphic systems are trying to copy that. Think about smarter IoT devices that can process information locally without draining your battery, or even personalized health monitors that can detect those tiny changes in your well-being. All of that is possible with neuromorphic technology.
It's pretty wild to imagine a future where AI is so seamlessly integrated into our lives, almost like an extension of our own senses and abilities.
It's a future that's closer than we think. But as we create these AI systems that are more powerful and intertwined with our lives, it's really important that we talk about the ethical side of things.
For sure, we need to be sure that AI is being developed and used responsibly, with transparency and accountability. That's a conversation we can't afford to ignore. But before we dive into the ethical stuff, let's switch gears and talk about something a little more fun: AI's impact on creativity.
Yeah, sounds good. What do you have for us?
Have you heard of SceneSynth? It's a tool that can basically generate an entire 3D scene from just a single image. Think about what that means for filmmakers, game developers, even architects.
That's incredible. How does that even work?
So SceneSynth uses something called a generative adversarial network, or GAN. It's basically an AI that learns to create new content based on the data it was trained on. In this case, it was trained on a massive amount of images and 3D models. So it can really understand the relationships between different elements in a scene.
So you give it a single image, like a quick sketch or even just a photo, and it can turn that into a fully realized 3D environment.
Exactly. It can even add in all those little details like lighting, textures, and objects to give you a really realistic and immersive scene.
That's mind-blowing, like taking an idea from your head and instantly making it real in 3D. What are some of the ways this tech could be used?
Well, for filmmakers and game developers, it could significantly reduce pre-production costs and time. Imagine being able to visualize entire sets or environments virtually before even starting any physical construction. It also opens up some exciting possibilities for interactive storytelling where viewers can actually influence the narrative by, manipulating the scene.
That's really cool. It completely blurs the line between passively watching something and actively participating in it. And it's just one example of how AI is changing the creative landscape.
It's amazing how AI can be used for both scientific discovery and artistic expression at the same time. It just shows that technology isn't just about data and numbers. It can also be a huge catalyst for creativity and innovation.
Totally agree. AI is becoming a tool that empowers us to explore new ideas, solve those really tough problems, and express ourselves in ways we never even imagined. And this is only just the beginning.
It's definitely a lot to wrap our heads around. We've covered so much already, from quantum computing to creative tools like Synth. What stands out to you the most from what we've talked about so far?
Oh, man. It's hard to pick just one, but I think the potential impact of quantum computing on fields like medicine, materials science is just incredible. Like, imagine designing new drugs at a molecular level with crazy precision, or developing materials with properties we've never even seen before.
Yeah, it's really amazing to think about how these advancements could change entire industries. And while we're talking about transformative technologies, we got to talk about self-driving cars. NVIDIA, the company known for those awesome graphics cards, has created a new AI software suite specifically for simulating autonomous driving scenarios.
Oh, wow. Simulation is so important for developing self-driving systems that are safe and actually work in the real world. By creating these super realistic virtual environments, developers can expose their AI algorithms to basically any scenario you can think of. From driving on packed city streets to dealing with obstacles on country roads, it's a way safer and more efficient way to test and refine these systems than just doing real-world road tests.
Makes sense. You can basically run millions of virtual miles without putting anyone in danger. I bet this kind of simulation is also super important for training AI to handle those edge cases, like those rare and unpredictable events that are hard to anticipate in the real world.
Exactly. Think about things like a sudden downpour that makes it impossible to see road markings, or a kid chasing a ball into the street. Those are situations that can be tough even for experienced human drivers. By exposing AI to these edge cases in a simulation, developers can make sure that self-driving systems are ready to handle them safely and effectively.
So it's like giving the AI a crash course in defensive driving, but without any actual crashes. It's fascinating how AI is being used to tackle such complex problems in so many different areas.
It really is. We've talked about the big companies like QuantumLeap AI and DeepMind, but there are also a bunch of smaller startups out there that are doing some really innovative stuff with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. There are actually two that I've been keeping my eye on. SynthMind is working on AI that can actually synthesize speech with, human-like emotional inflection. Imagine virtual assistants that can understand and respond to our emotions, or audiobooks that can convey the full depth and nuance of a human narrator.
Whoa, that's really cool. Being able to give synthetic speech that kind of emotional depth could completely change how we interact with technology. What's the other startup you mentioned?
The other one's called Echograph. They've made this tool that can analyze social media trends in real time. It could be super valuable for things like understanding public sentiment, predicting market trends, or even identifying new social movements.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like AI is giving us these new ways to understand massive amounts of data, even the crazy world of social media, like having a finger on the pulse of what everyone's thinking and feeling.
It's both exciting and a little scary to think about the implications of this kind of tech. It could be used for good, like understanding public health concerns or even preventing social unrest, but it also raises questions about privacy and the potential for manipulation.
Yeah, for sure. It's important to remember that AI is just a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. As AI keeps getting more advanced, it's more important than ever to have those open and honest conversations about the ethical side of things.
I completely agree. We need to make sure that AI is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone, and that's a responsibility we all share.
Speaking of groundbreaking developments, we can't forget about Google's recent work in natural language processing, or NLP. They've been making some huge progress in improving the accuracy and nuance of machine translation. Oh yeah, I've heard about that. That's a big deal for global communication. Imagine a world where language barriers basically disappear. where people can communicate effortlessly across different cultures and continents. That's the vision that Google's NLP advancements are bringing us closer to.
It's like having that universal translator from Star Trek, right?
Mm.
Think about the possibilities for international collaboration, cultural exchange, and even things like diplomacy. Breaking down those communication barriers could foster a much greater sense of connection among people all over the world.
That's a powerful thought. But as with any AI tech, there are always challenges. Like machine translation needs to go beyond just translating the words. It needs to understand things like the nuances of language, cultural context, and even humor to really get the meaning across accurately.
It's like that saying lost in translation, but on a whole new level. We got to make sure that AI understands not just the literal words, but also the meaning behind them. Otherwise, we might end up creating more misunderstanding than we solve.
Exactly. Bridging the gap between how humans communicate and how AI understands language is super important. It's all about making language no longer a barrier to understanding. And Google's work in NLP is definitely moving us in the right direction.
It's incredible to see how AI is affecting so many different parts of our lives, from the way we work to the way we communicate. It's such a rapidly evolving field that it can feel overwhelming to keep up with it all.
It definitely can. But it's also a really exciting time to be following all these developments. The possibilities seem endless. And it's fascinating to watch how AI is shaping the world around us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Before we wrap up our deep dive for today, is there anything else that you think is particularly noteworthy in the current AI landscape?
There are so many cool things happening right now. I think one thing that's really caught my attention is the rise of AI-powered cybersecurity tools. With all this talk about AI's potential risks, it's easy to forget that AI can also be a powerful force for good, especially when it comes to protecting our digital world.
Right, yeah. AI can analyze massive amounts of data and detect patterns that humans might miss, making it really valuable for identifying and preventing cyber threats.
Exactly. Companies are using AI to develop things like real-time threat detection systems that can identify and respond to attacks as they're happening, and predictive models that can anticipate future threats and help organizations stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
So it's like AI is becoming our digital bodyguard, protecting us from those invisible threats.
Pretty much. But of course, with any new technology, there are always challenges. One of the big challenges with AI and cybersecurity is the arms race between attackers and defenders. As AI gets better at defending against attacks, attackers are also using AI to develop more sophisticated ways to bypass security measures.
So it's a constant cat and mouse game.
Exactly, which is why it's so important for researchers and developers to stay ahead of the curve and keep pushing the boundaries of what AI can do in cybersecurity.
It sounds like AI is becoming an essential tool in the fight against cybercrime. But as we've discussed before, it's important to make sure that AI is used ethically and responsibly, even in the fight against bad actors.
Definitely. We need to be careful not to create AI systems that are biased or discriminatory or that could be used for surveillance or other malicious purposes. Finding that balance between security and privacy is going to be a big challenge in the years to come.
Absolutely. Well, it's been quite a journey exploring all these AI advancements with you today. I'm just struck by how AI is really touching every aspect of our lives, from the way we work and communicate to the way we protect ourselves from threats.
Yeah, it really is incredible. And we're only just scratching the surface of what AI can do.
That's what makes it so exciting and a little bit scary at the same time. But I think as long as we approach AI with a sense of responsibility and a commitment to ethical development, we can unlock its full potential and create a future where AI truly benefits all of humanity.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI. Be sure to follow us at AI for the People for more insights and discussions on all things AI. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.